Hi there, welcome to the Dumplin Verse Goodbye Party. My name is Sophie Carter-Kahn. You can call me Sophie. I am the host of the She's All Fat podcast, the podcast for fat positivity, radical self-love, and chill vibes only. And I'm a huge fan of my friend Julie Murphy, who we're here to celebrate. So please digitally welcome Julie. Hi, Julie.
Hi, Soph. It's so good to see you.
It's so good to see you. Would you give yourself a little introduction, although none is needed probably?
I would love to. I am Julie Murphy. I am a young adult author, a middle grade author, and also an adult author this year, which is exciting.
Very exciting.
I am probably most well known for Dumplin, which came out all the way back in 2015 and is now a movie on Netflix. My books primarily star fat people who are totally cool with themselves or trying to be totally cool with themselves, or at least totally neutral with themselves. And as far as Dumplin, Puddin, and Pumpkin goes, like the whole series of those three books, the final book, Pumpkin, came out just a few weeks ago, and it follows Waylon Brewer, and he is a fat gay boy in his senior year of high school. In the last few weeks, he is obsessed with drag, and he, in a moment of sort of desperation, after having a pretty rough day and feeling a little lost, decides to make a drag audition tape for his absolute favorite reality TV show. It's a drag show, and he kind of forgets about it, and it's sort of like a blip in his life, and then it accidentally goes a little bit viral at his school, and he's nominated for prom queen, and he decides, what the hell, let's do it. And so it's sort of about Waylon running for prom queen and saying goodbye to all the Dumplin characters that we've come to know and love over the other books.
Yes. How do you feel about your the third book of this trilogy being out in the world?
It's so bizarre. I think that I hadn't actually let myself think that it was ending until like the Saturday before the book came out. And I was just sort of like lying in bed staring at the ceiling thinking like, this kind of feels like graduating high school.
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of like really exciting and really sad. And like, I don't know, just those awful conflicting emotions that make us really human.
Yes.
And like, are just like really typical of these, big landmark moments in our lives.
Yes.
But it's funny because for readers, like the ending is just beginning. You know what I mean? Like this
Yes.
has been ongoing for me for a while, but
Yes.
I have a lot of people who are just discovering the first book, so I keep having to remind myself that like it's not the end of something. It's like, it just means a complete set is going out into the world.
Yes, totally. I mean, I was rereading things this week to prepare, and it is really fun to read them like one after another and be deep in the world, like all together, which is also how I like to binge read my other like book series that I like. But spending some time in Clover City this week was really fun. I will say when I was reading Pumpkin, I was waiting for the first couple chapters to see, or maybe like the first two chapters or whatever, to see how these characters exactly were connected. And then as soon as I saw that Clem was Hannah's girlfriend, I was like, oh, because one of the best parts of these books is getting to see the main characters from the other books kind of in the background of these books. So how did you decide to go with Waylon? Like, how did you go? The last book or PUDDIN was like pretty obvious to go from the first book to Millie, but how did you go from Willowdean and Millie to Waylon? What was that like?
Well, I had the idea for Waylon's story for a long time, and I just couldn't decide if Waylon was going to exist inside the Clover City universe or not. It was really important to me that for all three books, the narrator be a fat person, and there wasn't another fat character like ready to go. And so I knew that if I was going to write a third one, it would be an opportunity to introduce a new character. But I also, over the course of the books, had developed a really soft spot for Hannah. And even though she would probably never get her own book, I wanted to really have an opportunity to give her a really strong ending to her own story too. And this felt like the perfect opportunity to do that. So it was really just a matter of like deciding if like this story was going to stand on its own and be its own book, or if it would be like the perfect thing to slide right into the Clover City universe. And I just, like, all the pieces were already there. There was already like this great little small town gay bar. There was already like a supportive cast of characters. So it just felt really natural. And I think, like, I don't know, I had been thinking about it for a long time, and I've been really lucky to become friends with people from the cast and crew of the movie. And so I've become friends with Ginger Minge. And Ginger was kind of like the final shove in that direction of like just talking to Ginger, and Ginger just being like, write a drag story, just do it.
Yes.
Like, no one, like, you're not gonna get in trouble. It's gonna be okay. Like, you can write a drag story. Like, you know, gay men don't own drag. You can write a drag story. So it felt like a good little end cap to the whole
Love
series.
it. Yeah. That was one of my other questions, was how did it feel to write from like a different point of view? Because Millie and Willowdean also are very different people, but they are both, I can see them both as like aspects of your brain. You know what I mean? Like their experiences can clearly be drawn from some of your experiences.
Right.
Like, so how do you feel about writing Waylon?
Waylon really, I think that everyone writes a character or two in their lifetime that really represents like their innermost self. And Waylon really does that for me in a kind of scary way. He says the awful things that I'm thinking. He's got, even though he's not in theater, he very much has like my high school theater energy to him.
Yeah.
So he felt really natural for me to step into. I think that, you know, and we've talked so many different times, like Soph on the podcast, and about like the fat experience and how like it just varies based on like the lens that you look through and the lived experiences you've had and where you come from. And being married to like a fat guy, I see so much how my experiences are different from his experiences, in a positive and a negative way. But like there's this expectation of masculinity on fat men to be like, you know, if you're going to be fat, then it's fine as long as you're a protector, as long as you're a provider, as long as like your largeness does something for us.
Yes.
And so it was so exciting to write Waylon because he defies all of that. He really ruins all of that sort of like, you know, patriarchal logic of, you know,
totally,
or fatness.
I love that. I mean, this is true of all of your universes, but in Clover City, we know about and care about so many different people's experiences, even when they're people who are antagonizing our like main characters, you know? Like, I feel like as a writer, your view is very like compassionate towards all the people in your world. But I was thinking about that about different versions of fat masculinity reading this third book. Especially in the scenes where you contrast or have Mitch and Waylon talk. And that's like really fun because it's one of the fun things about your books is having more than one fat person in conversation. It's like a fat Bechdel test, you know? It's like they're talking to each other about something other than weight.
Right.
And Mitch and Waylon are so different, and yet they're really fleshed out fat male characters. And I love that.
Yeah. I want to see more of that so badly. And
me too.
Yeah, like just like male characters that aren't like the funny drunk guy, you know what I mean?
Yes.
The awful frat brother, you know what I mean? Like,
yes.
I want to see more.
Yes. More nice boys. The world has lots of nice boys, you know?
Surprisingly.
I know.
I'm kidding. I'm not kidding.
Well, you're not wrong, but there are a lot of sweet boys like Mitch and Waylon out there.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to ask a couple more questions about Pumpkin, and then we'll zoom out a little bit into the larger Clover City universe. So,
and if you have questions too,
yes, please be prepared and let us know your questions.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So here's a couple of questions for you about the story you've created in Pumpkin. So if you were nominated for Prom Court, what would be your campaign, do you think? What would you have to do for all the volunteering and the like fundraiser and such?
Yeah. So in Pumpkin, to really make prom more than just like a popularity contest, I devised like this whole thing that the candidates have to go through as far as like community service and things like that. And I was an awful student in high school, but I was really good at making friends with adults.
Yeah, me too.
Waylon talks about this too. I think it's just a trait of fat kids. Like we're like, I just have to find the adult in the room. If I can find the adult in the room, maybe I won't be bullied, or I don't know.
Well, the adult in the room is probably not going to directly call you fat to your face unless it's a parent, you know?
Right. Or like a gym teacher, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that it would be pretty easy for me to come up with like a great project to win over the staff with. I think that I would probably lean towards like free babysitting or something like that for like a night, or like figure out a way for like the staff to have a day off. Cause like I'm married to a teacher and all he wants is like
time off,
4 more hours in the day, time off, something. So
I love that idea.
Yeah.
What would be your outfit? What did you wear to prom?
Okay, so I went to 2 different I went to like a weird evangelical school. So we didn't have prom, like we weren't allowed to dance.
No.
I know we had a prom like an after party where it was more promish. But it was not sponsored by the school. They were very clear about that. But to my first one I wore like, it's actually, I don't have a picture of the cover with me, but it actually looks a lot like Faith's prom dress on the, like, you know, my superhero books. It looks like a lot like Faith's prom dress on the cover of the second book. It'll come out later this year. But it was like a 2-piece thing from Torrid. It was like a blue halter top, like iridescent with glitter.
Ooh.
Like a matching like long skirt. I feel like
cute
for 2003. It wasn't that bad.
Also, that's what's back now.
Yeah.
Apparently, did you know that Urban Outfitters, this slight aside, Urban Outfitters is selling Von Dutch hats right now. I know. I had the same face when I heard we're too old for it now. They're they're vintage now.
Are they going to bring back Ed Hardy too?
Yeah.
Oh, wait, are you serious?
Yes. All that stuff is back. Like literally all that stuff is back now.
Oh man. I love TikTok, but I have to literally take like days away from it because I start to just suddenly really begin to like wrestle with my own mortality.
I know, me too. Well, it's crazy to see I mean, you remember when we were that age and our parents would be like, oh my God, you're wearing what I used to wear. And I'd be like, okay, yeah, whatever, Mom. And now I'm like doing the same thing. And I'm like, oh my God, it really does just come around. And then your clothes are vintage and they have no idea what it means.
What did you wear? What did you have a prom? What did you wear to prom?
Okay, I went to a very small school, so I went to prom every year. So I, wore different things every year, but I usually wore, I still have a lot of things this color, but it was a color from a lot of the 2000s was that kind of light teal, Tiffany blue color. I mean,
I know it well.
Like these headphones.
Yeah.
So I had like 2 different dresses that were that color, and then I had like a plain black dress, and that was very long before I was ever brave enough to step foot in Torrid to shop because I was afraid of shopping in a fat store. So instead I just was sad about how everything didn't fit for,
I worked at Torrid in high school.
Really?
And I was terrified to tell my friends.
Oh my God.
Because there was like the original Torrid with like the flames, the heart on fire. This is now just a fat chat. I hope everyone out there knows that. Like this is no longer book specific. But it was when they had like the flame logo, and there was nothing on the signage or anything like that would lead you to believe that it was a plus size store. And so I worked there for so long, just telling my friends that it was like a sister store of Hot Topic, just another Hot Topic. And finally, one of my friends was like, I can't buy anything at your store. And I was like, it's for fat people.
Yeah.
But I mean, I didn't realize how important that first step, and I think that the books deal a lot with this too, actually. I didn't realize how important like that first step of just like acknowledging that you are fat is.
The first time I went into a Torrid, I walked by the store like 5 different times. I was afraid to go in. Like, I was literally afraid to go in, not because I thought anyone in there would be mean to me. I was just struggling internally with like, that's the fat store and you're fat, so you got to go in the fat store. And then I was like, I'm too embarrassed. I can't do it. I can't do it. And then I finally went in and everyone was like, hey, chica, or whatever, like, hey, sweetheart. I was like, oh, okay, this is fine. Like, this what am I?
Fine. Yeah.
You know? Like,
give me some leggings. Give me some like plaid bondage pants.
Exactly. Give me the Skull and Bones crop top and the Disney crop top. I have to buy them both because that's all you sell here. But yeah, I feel like Millie would be fine in any fat store. I feel like Willowdean might have more of an experience like I did at the beginning of, you know?
Yeah.
But
I there's so much to that moment of like not only accepting that you're fat, but also like it's okay to have fat friends or like a fat significant other, because it's like this constant like self-conscious like awful like death loop in your head of like, well, if I hang out with fat people, they'll know that I'm not worthy of hanging out with anyone else. Really, that's just like internalized fat phobia.
Yes. Absolutely.
Your brain.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was interesting to me. So I really want to talk about the character Callie, because I was really resentful about having to read about her for a lot of the second book, because I was like, who's this B word? Like, I don't like her. She's so rude. But one thing that stuck out to me was the moments where she sees Callie sees Millie the same way and like thinks the same things about her that Willowdean did. And it's like a really good example of how Willowdean needed to get over some internalized stuff. And like Callie it's the same for Callie. It's just not internalized because she's thin. So it's just regular fat phobia, you know?
I really think that when I was writing Callie, I was thinking a lot about like what was happening, especially on the internet. It was like the beginning of like, I don't want to say the beginning of cancel culture, but like it was like I was writing this in like 2016, 2017. And so like it was just like
things were intense online.
You were seeing people who were like, especially in publishing, like doing the wrong thing or saying the wrong thing, and like book contracts were getting canceled. And like there's extreme versions of this where like actual Nazis were losing book contracts, but there are also, you know, lesser extreme versions of this. And so I am always puzzled and like constantly wondering about what happens when someone sees that what they have done or the way that they were thinking is wrong. Like, how do they make amends? How do they come back from that? Like, do we have real estate for like that type of thing to happen? And that's what I wanted to illustrate with Callie, was like you can think that fat people are truly awful. You can think all of these things that society is trained to think about fat people, and you can reframe your whole thinking. You can come back from that, and you don't have to be an awful person. Like it's a choice. It's truly a choice.
Do you have anyone in your life that like you put into Callie at all? Not in a like they're shitty, so call them out, but like in a like, you know, do you know people who have made that transition?
I dropped a lot of people from my life who were really awful to me when I decided that like this is my body and I'm going to embrace myself. But there were a lot of people in my life who just didn't know any better and probably would want to do better. And I was so wrapped up in trying to make sense of myself that I didn't have the time to educate those people. Totally. And there were a lot of people in my life who started really making strides to meet me where I was and trying to educate themselves and learn about body positivity and fat positivity and diet culture. And so like, I think that is so much of what inspired me, was seeing like people like my best friend or people like my mom, who has completely reframed the way she talks about bodies and working out and eating. Because those people are like invaluable people in my life.
Yeah.
But they were raised, the same way I was. Like, they weren't raised to think critically about how diets and, our culture impact the way we think about our bodies.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I've had similar things happen. And also, with some people, the lines have to be in different places than others, and even just in terms of what you can handle. Some people I can handle more shit from than other people,
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't know if I'm allowed to say that
I
word.
think it's fine. I mean, I don't know if Metaverse BookCon thinks it's fine. I think it's fine. They haven't called off yet.
I want them to bleep me saying that. Okay, I have a slight turn for some of these other questions. Okay, these are some more fun ones. Okay, so music plays a significant part in your books. Obviously, Dumplin and the other ones have a huge Dolly influence. Do you listen to specific soundtracks when you write them? And if Pumpkin had a soundtrack, what songs would you want to include?
Ooh, well, the problem is I'm constantly listening to the same music I did in high school.
Me too. So, everyone does that.
I know. And my mom did this growing, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it's just a sign that I'm aging.
It's inevitable.
And so my copy editors or my editor is constantly like, is this relevant? Like, do the kids know who, oh gosh, what was the like the one lesbian song we had in like 2002? With, like,
I don't know, like Tori Amos or something like that.
Tori Amos too, but there was like a pop song where it's like all the things they say, all the things they say.
Oh yeah, running through my head. Yeah, I don't.
Songs like that. Like, someone has to pull me back. And I do reference music a lot. Like, it's like the legal team at HarperCollins probably hates me because I'm constantly like, they're like, you can use this much of the lyric, and I'm like, what if? Push it just a little bit further because I can't cut it off right there. But yeah, Pumpkin does have its own playlist. I can actually look at it.
Yeah, please tell me what's on it.
It's really extensive. It's like 70 songs, but there's a lot of Lizzo. There's a lot of Lady Gaga. There's some Shania Twain, even though I heard that Shania Twain is like a little on the sort of racist side.
I mean, I guess I wouldn't. I mean, who is there left to be surprised about? I know. But I believe you, but I haven't heard a thing. I've been off Twitter for a year because
it's for the best. Yeah. Oh, Mika. I don't know if you listen to Mika at all, but
I love Mika. Yeah.
Lots of Mika. And also it felt right to include some Taylor Swift. I feel like Waylon might never admit to it, but I feel like he would probably be like an inner Swiftie.
I think you're not wrong. I think every character in your books would listen to T Swift, honestly.
Oh, for sure, Millie.
Yeah.
Definitely.
For sure.
Yeah.
Okay. I have a couple details from this third book that are fun. One of my favorite things about books is just universe building, right? Like, I want to talk about Clover City in a minute. But one fun thing is this alternative you've created that's like fake Drag Race in the book. Okay, I wanted to just read the names of the stars of the show that you came up with because I thought this seemed like it was a really fun thing to write.
Yeah.
Okay. This is from Pumpkin, page 22. The lush red curtain behind Carmela lists to display every single one of the eliminated queens from this season, each of them decked out in their best signature drag. There's a wide array, including Marjorie Simpson, who specializes in fandom drag, Betty Deadly, who's known for her spooky goth look, Beyonce, who's an infamous Beyonce impersonator from Vegas, and Angela Doolittle, known for being crowned Miss Southern Belle from New Orleans. They're so fun. Those must be so fun to come up with. I love drag names.
It's so fun to come up with. And the funny thing is, I still can't decide what my drag name would be.
That's what I was gonna ask you.
I know. I'm sorry. I don't have a good answer. I've been asked this question at least 15 times in the last 2 weeks, and I still am just like a little torn. Like, is there like a weird Fast and Furious reference for a drag queen? Because like I feel like that's the one thing that no one knows about me that they're always surprised by is like I'm obsessed with the Fast and Furious franchise.
I mean, the most obvious one would be just to be like, you and I do a twin act and we're too fat, too furious.
Yes.
That's the answer is all
I
I
mean, that's my answer from now on. Who's too fat? Who's too furious? Could we just take turns?
Yeah, exactly. Yes, absolutely. It sounds fun to me. Okay, so I also mentioned that I love Clover City. I'm the kind of kid who liked to like print out or like look at the maps at the front of my fantasy books all the times, you know. Looking back at them as an adult, a lot of them are literally just like the Northlands, the Eastlands, you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
Clover City has a very particular layout. I have never lived in a small Texas town, but I know you have. So I want to know what you think. Like, what are the things in Clover City that are like based off of real things? Which are the kind of like imaginary Texas like ideas of things that are in there? You know, tell me about Clover City.
Well, I've never lived in a true small town Texas, but I'm like you live in like the LA area. So compared to you, I definitely have.
Yeah.
But I've just spent a lot of time in small town Texas because it can be really problematic, but I also find lots of it really charming. And I also think the reason why I love writing Clover City is because you find the most surprising people in these towns. Like,
Yeah.
I think that we start thinking like, oh, queer people only live on the coasts. Queer people only live in big cities, or like, you know, forward thinking people only live in like these very specific cities. And that's why I like writing in Clover City, is because that's not true. Like,
Yeah.
there's all sorts of people living in these little towns. And I really love, like, I think that like one of my favorite small town details that I've ever seen driving somewhere, I can't remember what little town this was, but they didn't have a Dairy Queen, they had a Dairy King. And so like just like all these little, like we have a Paris, Texas that has like its own Eiffel Tower.
Mm-hmm.
Like I find all of these things like so delightful and charming.
Yes.
And I am sort of obsessed with like what it might feel like to live in like one of these truly small towns. And it's really hard for me to imagine myself writing anything in like a big established town. I also I also like the opportunity of like taking a place, you know, and building like its own like fictional world inside of it. So like Texas, or with Faith, it's like Minnesota, or with Ramona Blue, it's Mississippi. I just love being able to pull on like the pieces of the culture that I want to use and I feel like I can use, while also still creating like this own contained bubble. So
I like that too. I also like so many of the places in there. I mean, again, you have such a compassionate eye as a writer. Like a lot of the things that happen to the characters and a lot of the places they are and stuff written in a different way. Like you could do, you know, those like YouTube edits that are like Scary Mary Poppins or whatever. Like you could do a scary Dumplin series.
Oh, totally.
You know what I mean? Like there's definite dark stuff and like shady stuff, but you just have such a like compassionate and like positive eye towards stuff. Like for example, I laugh every time I read about the chili place with the bad chili.
I know. I love it. I can't help it.
You know, I've stopped at so many, driving from LA to Phoenix, which is a drive I've done many times. We've stopped in many places and gone, well, this is what we're eating. So, and they're exactly like that. There's the one person at the counter and they're like surprised you're there. And then they're like, you want some? Like, it's so spot on.
Yeah. Yeah. Like there's so many, because I'm originally from Connecticut and I spent my early childhood in Connecticut, and I grew up in a pretty like small town type of area in Connecticut. And there were just so many places that were like my dad's favorite place in the world that were actually awful. Like every time I go back home to Connecticut to visit people, he's constantly like, you've got to go to this place. You got to go to this place. And we go back and it's like, there's like a notice from like the health department on the like, it's just
special because you spent time there.
Yeah, it's really just about like the memories that you've made at a place and sort of like, you know, putting your own little imprint on a place.
Obviously. Yes. Oh my God. Yes. I love the chili place. I love the very Friday Night Lights detail of Callie's ex's dad owning all those like car places and being a jerk. Like very, I don't know. I love the whole town. Where in Clover City would you most want to go that doesn't exist?
Ooh. I feel like, okay, I'm not a very crafty person, but I feel like Clover City probably has like a really happening like arts and crafts scene.
Oh, yeah.
Or I bet Clover City has a really great book club that never actually talks about books, and it's just so like gossipy and like great. I feel like I would like that. And I feel like, I mean, the real Clover City novel that's never been written and probably never will be is like what's going on at the community theater. Because like that's just like small town drama waiting to happen.
I want to read that.
One of my friends grew up in a very small town in Texas, and I can't write this story because this is his story to tell. But one time he was doing like a summer theater program for teenagers, and there were two people running the theater, and there was a schism between the two of them. And one of these people called all of the teenagers in this group and were like, we got to get there and get all those costumes. We're out of there. We're going to have to perform somewhere else, but let's go. And they went to the theater in the middle of the night and stole all the costumes.
Oh my God.
All these teenagers in like their Honda Civics driving across town.
Hijinks.
Some other place. So I think the community theater is really where I would find myself.
I love that. I'm obsessed with that. I personally think I would find myself, I don't even know. I probably would go to the local antique store, try to find some milk glass for my mom's collection. Yeah. Small towns always have the best stuff. You find some milk glass shaped like a cow or something, and you're like, okay, great. I'll buy that for $2. Thank you.
I feel like there would be a good psychic somewhere in town.
Oh my gosh, you're so right.
No.
Yes.
So
yes, that would be very fun.
That wants to keep writing in Clover City.
Please. I want to read that. So overall, speaking of writing about Clover City or just writing being done, I was wondering, so thinking about these books, all of your work has intertied themes and characters that are similar in different ways. But these books in particular have, like, obviously because they're set in the same place and they take place like right after each other, and they have 3 different fat teens coming to terms with their fatness in different ways. Do you feel like after writing these 3, do you feel like you wrote through something for yourself? Like I was wondering if you felt like you like got some out. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, like without a doubt in my mind. I mean, Dumplin is like my angry fat years. You know what I mean? Like I was still learning so much. And I mean, I'm still learning so much, but I was just so fresh to like the idea of body positivity and the ideas of fat positivity. And like, it was like I woke up one day and found out like, you hate your body because the world is designed for you to hate your body. And I was so angry at everything and everyone who was at all like involved. Like, I don't know. I really feel like that anger in Dumplin. I think that there's a fieriness to her. Sorry, there's a random fly. There's a fieriness to her that I can really resonate with.
Yeah.
And then Millie has like this sort of determination that I really had to like teach myself to own. Like it's okay to want things. It's okay to have hopes and dreams. And I think that we work through that a little bit more in Pumpkin too. Like you don't realize how what am I trying to say? Like how vulnerable it is to want something.
Yes.
And to plan for the future and to think that you're worthy of something. And I think that that's really what I worked through in the last 2 books. Like, especially like me, like at this over the course of these last few years for this to come or to turn into my full-time career.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of like having to like remind myself that like it's okay to plan for the future and it's okay to expect that you're going to get to write more books.
Yeah.
So especially because, and I'm sure that anyone from any kind of marginalized background experiences this, it's kind of like, is this a trend? Like in 10 years, are people still going to think that like it's worth having fat narrators and fat authors. Like, are we just going to move on to the next thing?
I get that.
So
well, there'll still be fat people then. So hopefully
fat people, I can guarantee it.
No, we'll all have dieted successful by then, Julie.
Yeah,
That's what we just haven't found the right one yet. That's what we're doing, right?
Diets work, right?
Diets work. I love that. And I feel like, I mean, I find these books cathartic to read. I see parts of myself in all these characters too. I was much more of a black and white thinker, I think, as a teen. And I had both way more and way less self-doubt than I do right now. I don't know if that makes sense, just in terms of like,
it totally does.
You know, like I was always like, I'm going for this and no one can stop me. But then at the same time, I was afraid to go and tour it, you know? So there were all these but so I really relate to all of the moments where like these teens are brave and then they're scared and then they're brave and then they're scared. Cause that's the way it is. That's the way it feels then, you know?
Well, I think that this is kind of speaks to what you're saying, but I always strove for the things that would make me like look like I was like ambitious, or like I wasn't just the fat person that you might expect me to be.
Same.
But everything that confirmed that I was fat terrified me.
Absolutely. 100%. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And that's, I think, that's one of the reasons why I love that Willow and Millie like become good friends, because like fat friendship's so important.
I know.
Okay, I have a silly question.
Okay.
So you know that on my podcast, I love doing sleepover questions and like F, Marry, Kill and all that silly thing. So instead of F, Marry, Kill,
okay,
I want to know which of your three main characters, Waylon, Millie / Callie, and Willowdean, which one would you take to breakfast, lunch, and dinner?
Ooh, okay.
Which meal goes with which character for you?
Okay. Well, I think that Waylon is definitely a dinner character. Waylon is the character like you can end the night with. Like you're okay if you get trapped there with a couple more drinks. I think that Millie and, you know, Callie would come along. I think Millie would be very passionate about breakfast food. You know? And I think that Willowdean would probably not get out of bed in time for breakfast. So she would probably be delegated to lunch.
I like that. Oh, I love that. Would you share a burger with any of them at what's the cafe called that Willow works at?
What is it called? Harpies?
It's called something so similar to every cafe that I'm always like, Harpies. Like it's just the right name, you know?
Yeah. I would definitely.
It sounds fun there, honestly. So I also wanted to know how you're going to say thank you and goodbye to these characters. Like for personally, will they like live on in your other work? Like, are you going to journal to them? What are you going to do?
I never could bring myself growing up to journal because it felt just so much like homework.
Yeah.
So I never journaled. I never did fan fiction. I could never write unless I could see like a clear end game, which is probably because my dad's in the car business, and that's just like the way my brain thinks. Like, where is this going to end up? What are we going to do? But I do think that like getting to see Dumplin on film has been like a really like it sort of feels like you've already accomplished this huge thing, and so
you have
goodbye now is like it's okay. Like we got to do this big great thing and we feel really confident and good about it. So I feel like I'm constantly wavering back and forth over like how I feel about saying goodbye or how I'm going to say goodbye. But I'm also really grateful to be releasing multiple titles this year because it's kind of making it a little bit easier to let go.
Yeah, sure.
Because I have to.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think I've decided like how that, you know, door is going to close, how that's going to feel for me. So
I think you just have to move through it and see how it feels. But also like, you know, things that you write, I feel like both always feel present. And also sometimes I reread my old writing and I'm like, who wrote that? That's a good story, you know?
Yeah.
So it'll probably feel weird. I would like to move on to some fan questions, if that's okay with you. Thank you all for being here. I have a question from Jenna. Hey, Jenna, thank you for watching. Jenna says, Julie mentioned a playlist she listened to while writing Dumplin. Where can I find this playlist?
Ooh, okay. So I do have one public playlist that I can
on Spotify.
Yeah, I think I can probably put it into our little chat, and the kind people in Metaverse will share it.
Great.
But I do have one for Dumplin. I don't have public ones for. Oh wait, maybe I can't do this right now. But I'll post it on my Instagram stories, or if you can find me on Spotify. I don't have other public ones, at least not that I know that they're public. I'm very old. I could be Spotifying wrong. But I feel like a good book playlist is like 10 to 15 songs. And my playlist that I write to are like 70 songs. So maybe people do want that, but I feel like I need to curate it a little bit more and edit it down.
I would take a 70 song playlist.
Well, thank you. Then you can have them. There is one for Dumplin. And also, like, I feel so good about the soundtrack to that movie.
It's so good.
If you do feel like you need like a playlist for Dumplin, it's a really good place to start.
I love that. Okay, our next question is from Chris. Chris, hello. Chris says, did the success of the Dumplin adaptation affect your future writing in any way? Yes. Now she's spoiled and she has no time for us peons, and she's just a totally different person.
Totally different person. Sophie was there the night
at the premiere.
It was the first time we ever met in person.
It was really fun. One of the best nights of the last 5 years for me, for sure.
Yeah, it was so cool. It was so exciting to get to meet you. I feel like I've like had the opportunity to like make so many friends over the years, like online.
Me too.
Kind of like getting to invite all my LA friends to like my LA wedding, you know? Like,
it literally felt like that. It was really fun.
It was really fun. But I do think, I want to say that it doesn't change you as a writer. It doesn't make you a better writer. And I don't think that it does make you a better writer. But speaking from like a business standpoint solely, it does change the way people look at you. Sure. Like Dumplin hit the New York Times bestseller list, and it didn't stay on there for very long, but it hit one. And so that will forever change like how I'm introduced as an author. Like just the fact that people can say she has a Netflix adaptation, it'll always change how people perceive you. And so it's definitely opens doors for me that I would not have had access to prior. And it's kind of made people who don't really pay attention to publishing, like a lot of my really lovely family members, it's made my success something that they can more easily metabolize. So it has changed things in that way. And it's kind of like getting in a car crash in a way. It's like, well, if you get in one, you're probably going to get into another one. And that's kind of how I feel. Like, it just feels like, I think leading up to the movie, I thought there's no way this is ever going to happen again. I have to get all of my wonderful moments and expectations and like all my hopes and dreams out of like this one experience. But then you kind of sit back and you think like, it could happen again. Like maybe it's not like this total, shot in the dark. So we'll see. We're actually working on an adaptation with the Disney Channel right now for Dear Sweet Pea. So that's what
so exciting.
For that. So I'm busy.
Oh my gosh. I would love to see that. Oh, that would be so fun. Wow. I just got all excited. That's so fun. Fingers crossed. That would be so good. All of your books should be adapted, in my opinion. Okay, Lynn, shout out to you. Lynn asks,
like Lynn. Do we think this would be Lynn?
I don't know. I just like the name Lynn because it's the name of my senior producer. So shout out to you. Shout out to all Lynns.
Yeah, all the Lynns out there. You're great.
Lynn says, "What was your hardest scene to write?"
Ooh, in Pumpkin, I think the hardest and also my favorite scene to write. There's this great party scene. I love a party scene, but it's like a battle scene. Do you know what I mean? Like there are so many moving parts. People are everywhere. Like you've really got to like have your blocking down for a scene like that. I think like in Dumplin, I loved writing like the one-on-one romantic scenes with like Willowdean, just because it was sort of like this, like, I hesitate to call it wish fulfillment because that makes it sound unattainable, but sort of like it was this exciting moment where I was finally getting to write like a plus size heroine who was, desirable. It was really exciting. So
That's really fair. I wondered if any of honestly, when I was reading the Callie stuff, I wondered if that was hard to write because I found myself annoyed at her, obviously, because she's rude sometimes, despite the fact that she's probably the character that has the most redemptive arc, which is like a very satisfying emotionally arc.
Yeah.
But was it hard to write her, like, in her headspace, figuring out what her reactions would be to stuff?
It was hard to write her, and she does and says a lot of fatphobic things, and I went back and forth on whether or not there should be any kind of like disclaimer or, content warning or anything like that for her. But I do think that if you've read the books, it's very clear very quickly what direction her character is going in, so that's why we leaned back from that. But it was difficult and it wasn't. I think that like I always like writing a mean girl. So there were aspects of her that were really difficult to get through, but at the same time, like it's always a little fun.
I feel like it's extremely fun to write a mean girl, but that's what made me think originally about the questions about like, did you write through stuff? Because I was like, Julie must have really processed her shit, because it would be hard for me to write compassionately about like a hot mean girl who was like said mean stuff to the fat characters that I loved. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I can feel that for sure.
Okay, Ashlyn says, what's the most difficult thing about writing characters with backgrounds other than your own?
Ooh, it's not easy. So I think that there's a difference between writing a point of view character with a different background of your own and then writing like, various side characters or background characters. I always want my universe to feel really diverse, and really authentic. So it's really important to me that the world looks like the world that I live in. But as far as like writing a point of view character that's different from my own personal identity, I would only ever write a point of view character who is like closely related to me in some sort of way, or whose experience I feel like I've lived so closely to that I could do it and also have people in my life that I could lean on to walk me through that process so I don't do any harm. So Waylon is different in that, I'm not a gay boy, but I am queer and I am fat. And so those were two really big things that I could draw on to bring to his character. But I also had a lot of like queer male identifying friends of mine who were able to lend their expertise and talk to me through different things and read for me. And so I think that that's really important, is to not go into a situation feeling defensive and go into a situation when you're having like expert readers look in on things for you. Like you're expecting that like, I probably did something wrong. There's probably something that I'm not seeing in my field of vision here. And this is a good thing. This is a learning and a teaching moment for me. But I do think it's important to like, it just at the very beginning, think like, do I need to write this character? Would this character be better served written by someone else for whatever reason? So that's a really important question to start out with, I think.
I like that. Yeah, I think, you said a couple of things during this and before in our conversations that show how much care you take with writing other kinds of characters than you are. And I think about that too as a writer and a creator. And I think like what you said is exactly right, but it's like a lot scarier to go into those convos when the thing that you're making is going to be read by a lot of people, as opposed to like an interpersonal action. Like it's a lot easier to take responsibility for a change within yourself that maybe not the world's going to read, you know?
I know. It's just like, I don't go on my way to read reviews or anything like that, but just seeing like the numbers of reviews pile up on pages like Amazon or Goodreads, like you start to become really aware of the fact that like a lot of people who I am in no way connected to are reading this. And I hope that I am not doing anything to harm them.
Same. I have that feeling a lot too. Okay. Ruby, hello Ruby, asks, What's on your TBR pile these days?
Do I have? Okay, no, I just put all my books away. Okay, so Hani and Ishu's Guide to Fake Dating. I'm editing until tomorrow, so these are like what's coming up absolutely next for me.
Mm-hmm.
Hani and Ishu's Guide to Fake Dating. I have an arc of Olivia Dade's new book. If you don't know who she is, she's a plus size romance author.
Amazing.
Been a really big fan so far. Meet Cute Diary by, I think that's Emery Lee. And then, like every other person on the planet, I have One Last Stop by Casey McQuiston.
This is a great TBR pile.
Yeah. I've got a lot of books in the works. I'm feeling good. What are you reading right now? Are you reading right now?
Well, I just reread the Dumplin verse this week.
Sorry. Yes.
What else have I read? Oh, I have like a nonfiction rec, which is right now for my book club, I'm reading They Were Her Property, which is about like white women owning slaves and like the way that narrative has been erased and changed. And I also have been trying to reread because I'm getting ready to try to write my YA novel. And so I'm rereading some of my old YA faves, like my old Tamara Pierce stuff I always go back to.
Good old Tamara Pierce.
Good old Tamara Pierce. Okay, we have another question from Ben.
But based on, I think that we should recommend one more book. Based on our conversation, if any of this is feeling new to you and you're interested in like fat positivity or reading up on fatness, what is your fat friend's book called? And I blurbed it. I just blanked.
It's called, her name's Aubrey Gordon, and it's called What We Don't Talk About When We Talk About Fat. The name is like a play on another book name, so I always mix it up with that one. Yeah. But yes, also highly recommend that book.
So good, and it's short
really good,
too, which I think is important for a book like that.
It's not academic, it's very accessible, which is really nice. Yeah. Highly recommend.
Yeah.
Okay, Ben asks, what's your favorite thing about your writing?
Ooh, I don't know. I think that's hard to answer like specifically about like my favorite thing that I do as a writer. But
what are the scenes or whatever that you're always like, this is fun to do, you know?
I mean, like I love writing a fight scene. Like if someone's like duking it out.
Really?
That's always one of my favorite things to write. My favorite part of the writing process and the place I feel like I really shine is editing. I love editing. I think that like, especially when I have time to sit down and do it, because sometimes I don't have like real time to commit to it. But when I can edit and I do have time to really dig in, it's like there's the version of the book that exists in your head and there's the version of the book that exists on paper, and getting to like buff away and make it like match the version of the book that's in your head is just so exciting to me. And it's like something that makes me feel like I'm a writer, like I'm doing something, I'm making progress. So I always really recommend for, you know, fellow writers to really embrace editing and like really go into your book thinking of it as like a living, breathing thing that could change at any moment and not be so tied to every little detail and every little, you know, thing. So
I think that attitude is by far the best attitude, because so many people get stuck on writing a perfect first draft, and you have to write the garbage. You just got to puke out the garbage first.
Yeah. It's so true. It's so true.
Yeah. Okay. We have one last question. So thank you all so much for watching. And then we're going to wrap up after this. But we have one more question from Ashlyn. Ashlyn asks, do your family and friends support your career as a writer?
I mean, yes, in a huge way. I mean, Soph is one of my dearest friends. She's here with me today. But I do have some family members who it's hard for because they're just conservative-leaning people who can't wrap their head around the fact that queer people deserve to have their stories told. So it has, I mean, I think that it has like rubbed my queerness in some people's faces.
Yeah.
And it's really caused a distance in some ways. But I'm also not mad about it because the distance was always there. I just couldn't feel it as deeply as I do now.
Yeah.
But the people who really love and support me, I really, really feel it. So it amplifies a lot of things one way or the other.
Dang. That's good. I'm glad that you feel supported because you sure have a lot of friends and family who are very proud of you, like I am. Okay. I think, is there anything else that you want to shout out or get people on the lookout for or anything like that?
I don't have any of the things that I should have in front of me right now.
It's okay.
The first Faith book came out in paperback actually on the exact same day as Pumpkin came out.
Exciting.
So keep an eye out for that. It's always fun when a paperback comes out, a little bit cheaper.
Yes.
And also very beach friendly. So keep an eye out for that. And then the second book in that series will be out in November.
Exciting. Can't wait.
And I have my first adult book out. It's a Cinderella retelling.
It's so good.
TV show on, and that'll be out in August. And then Sophie, what's going on with you?
Oh my God. If anyone who's watching is interested, please tune into my podcast, She's All Fat. We're in our final season. We're doing some fun stuff. We have an episode with you coming up that will be great. And I think this week we replayed an old episode of ours too. So we're just like standing you this week and doing everything we can. And yeah, that's it. Support my podcast, but mostly support Julie's books. Go out and buy some more. Give them to a fat friend. Give them to a friend who needs to hear about a fat point of view. That's what I would say.
Yeah.
Thank you all so much for being here and for reading and for talking and asking us your questions. I love being able to do these events, and it's only good if it's good for y'all watching. So I hope you had a good time. Julie, thank you for being here and for being my friend.
Thank you for being here with me.